Can you imagine living in a place where every square meter is shared by 4 people? No windows, no space, no way out. Here, you don't walk, you squeeze through bodies. The air stinks of burnt plastic, sewage, and sweat that never dries. Ceiling fans hum beside sewing machines. A baby cries in the background. All of it merging into the forced breath of a city running on survival. Welcome to Dharavi, where life isn't lived, it's compressed to fit. Number 1. Life in the suffocating slum. You might picture Dharavi as a chaotic sprawl of torn tarpaulin huts pressed against the towering skyline of Mumbai. It's an image often repeated in news footage. Poverty crouching in the shadow of luxury. But that picture is incomplete. Dharavi is not merely a slum. It is a fully functioning parallel city, one that lives, breathes, and rebuilds itself each day, often without any help from official institutions. Occupying just over 2.39 square kilometers, Dharavi is smaller than Mumbai's international airport, but nearly 1 million people call it home. The population density here is among the highest in the world, almost 10 times greater than downtown Mumbai. Streets are not streets in the usual sense, but narrow lanes barely 60 centimeters wide. In many places, 2 people can't pass each other without turning sideways. If you stretch your arms, you'll touch the walls of the homes on either side. Despite its size and constraints, Dharavi is astonishingly self-sufficient. It has everything a city needs: 300-year-old mosques, Hindu temples clouded with incense smoke, informal schools, tea stalls, fish markets, mobile phone repair shops, and even small Wi-Fi cafes. This tightly woven infrastructure allows Dharavi to operate as an autonomous urban organism. It is disconnected from official governance but deeply connected through its own systems of cooperation, commerce, and community. More than just a residential cluster, Dharavi is an economic powerhouse. Each day, over 5,000 workshops and 15,000 one-room factories grind into motion. These spaces, often no larger than a garage, handle everything from plastic recycling and soap boiling to leather tanning and garment stitching. As of early 2025, estimates suggest that Dharavi processes a substantial share of Mumbai's plastic waste, potentially between 6,000 and 9,000 metric tons daily. These activities fuel an informal economy that generates over $1 billion annually, almost entirely off the books. Though this economic output is unofficial, its impact is very real. Should Dharavi pause even for a day, a significant portion of Mumbai's informal economy would come to a standstill. But sustaining this hidden city comes at a cost, one that rarely appears in reports or policy documents. The people who keep this ecosystem alive work in dim rooms with no ventilation, live in alleyways with no escape routes, and remain unnamed in statistics. Their daily battles are not just against poverty, but against invisibility. And behind every corrugated metal door lies one of the harshest battles of all: the daily fight for clean water. That's where our story turns next. Number 2. Sleep in the toilet. What does it take for a place to be considered so unlivable that people don't want to stay even a second longer? Let us show you Dharavi, where even using the toilet feels like a punishment, not a relief. In this crowded labyrinth, a toilet is never just a toilet. It's a shared battleground of dignity, survival, and desperation. Thousands of residents sleep beside, behind, or sometimes even inside public toilet blocks, simply because there's nowhere else to go. In homes barely the size of a parking space, toilets are luxuries few can afford, and public ones are falling apart faster than they can be patched up. Walk down one of Dharavi's narrow 18-meter corridors, and you'll come across toilet buildings with shattered doors, cracked walls, and gaping holes wide enough to peer through. The smell is relentless. The floors are often soaked with standing water. Or worse, people wash their dishes where others relieve themselves. Children brush their teeth beside open drains. It's not improvised hygiene. It's institutional neglect. In some sections, there are no taps, no flushes, no lights. The toilet blocks become breeding grounds for mosquitoes, infections, and shame. The elderly suffer most. Many avoid drinking water entirely after sunset to reduce their need to go, just so they can avoid the late-night walk through dark alleys to a toilet that may or may not be functional. Ashish Gajakosh, a longtime resident, asks the question everyone here has silently repeated for years. How much longer do we have to live like this? The toilets are always clogged. The elderly suffer every single day. And Kunal Mane, from the new Parsi Chawl area, adds grimly, overflowing gutters are our everyday reality. The pipes are blocked. The stink never goes away, and our children play just meters from it. This is not just about sanitation. It's about what happens when a basic human right, access to a clean, safe toilet, is treated like a distant privilege. In Dharavi, going to the toilet doesn't bring relief. It brings fear, disease, and the cruel reminder that even dignity here has a waiting line. Number 3. Narrow alley like a cage. What qualifies as a living space when the streets feel more like cattle chutes than walkways? Welcome to the inner lanes of Dharavi, where the average alleyway measures less than 60 centimeters wide. That's barely enough space for one person to pass sideways, let alone an emergency stretcher or a mother carrying a sick child. When fire breaks out or floods rush in, as they often do, there is no way to escape. People move like a current of bodies, shoulder to shoulder, pressed into each other until the path clears or the danger wins. Inside these lanes are rooms not much bigger than a walk-in closet. One family of 6 typically lives in a space just 9 square meters, roughly 10 feet by 10 feet. They pay around 1,500 rupees a month, which is about 18 US dollars. That may sound affordable, but what you get is not privacy or security. It's survival in a box. These rooms double as kitchens, bedrooms, storage units, and sometimes even as workplaces. There is no separate space to cry, to sleep, or to be alone. To outsiders, Dharavi may appear chaotic, even frightening, but what's more terrifying is the scale of compression here. With nearly 1 million people living in just over 519 acres of land, Dharavi holds an estimated 277,000 people per square kilometer. For perspective, that's over 700,000 people per square mile. Compare that to New York City's population density, only about 20,000 per square mile, and Dharavi begins to feel like another world entirely. However, this other world exists just 11 kilometers away from some of India's most expensive real estate. That proximity makes the contrast even sharper. One side lives with rooftop pools and private elevators, while the other can't even stretch both arms inside their own homes. In such compressed conditions, the body adapts, but the mind begins to fracture. With no personal space, every sound becomes collective, every fight overheard, every private act turned public. Over time, this breeds more than discomfort. It leads to communal stress, insomnia, chronic anxiety, and even domestic violence. When people are packed tighter than cattle, something more than space is lost. Their sense of self begins to disappear too. Number 4. Universe of contradictions. Dharavi is a universe of contradictions, dense, raw, and deeply alive. At its heart, children's laughter echoes through alleyways just inches wide, even as heavy machines rattle behind corrugated metal doors. churning out products by the hundreds. Joy and industry coexist, not in harmony, but in a kind of negotiated tension. Clean water is a daily struggle. Residents queue for hours just to collect a few buckets before the taps run dry. However, this very same neighborhood generates an estimated $1 billion dollars annually through its informal economy, an economy built without office buildings, tax IDs, or even written contracts. When night falls, Dharavi doesn't sleep, it ignites. Plastic furnaces roar to life, melting bottles into pellets under open skies. Rubber is baked, fabric dyed, and zippers assembled, all beneath the flicker of bare bulbs and headlamps strapped to sweat-drenched foreheads. This underground economy doesn't follow regulations. What exists instead is experience, hustle, and muscle memory passed down through generations. The recycling industry alone has made Dharavi a hidden capital of sustainability. Over 60% of Mumbai's plastic waste, roughly 1,200 metric tons per day, finds its way into Dharavi's narrow lanes. Waste pickers deliver plastic to sorting centers, where it's cleaned, melted, and reshaped into chakis, plastic pellets used by factories across India and even exported to China. These workshops employ an estimated 10,000 to 12,000 workers, often in spaces no larger than a kitchen. And then there's leather, in tiny, unventilated units. Men and women craft jackets, handbags, and accessories bound for Europe, the Middle East, and the United States. This microsector alone is worth over $10 million annually. The hands that stitch and tan do so without safety gear, labor protections, or sick leave. For many women, night shifts are followed by early mornings. Cooking, cleaning, caregiving. Exhaustion becomes routine. Saying no is not an option. In Dharavi, resilience isn't a choice. It's the only way forward. Paid for not in policies or protections, but in sweat, silence, and remarkable skill. Number 5. Heavy class discrimination. Behind Dharavi's billion-dollar informal economy lies a brutal truth that no statistic can fully capture. Deep, persistent caste segregation that thrives quietly amid the city's chaotic rhythm. While the outside world often marvels at Dharavi's resourcefulness and economic might, few stop to ask, who does the dirtiest work and why? In Dharavi, as across much of urban India, caste doesn't disappear in poverty. It organizes it. The Dalits, once labeled as untouchables, remain locked in roles no one else will touch. Though India has officially outlawed caste discrimination, the reality in slums like Dharavi tells another story. Here, toilets are more than just sanitation infrastructure. They are political spaces, zones where caste and class become painfully visible. Dalits are overwhelmingly assigned to clean and maintain these spaces, jobs still seen by many as impure because they involve contact with waste or earth. Every day, Dalit workers in Dharavi empty clogged drains, carry waste, and clean overflowing latrines without gloves, protective gear, or recognition. It's not just physical dirt. They are burdened with social dirt, the inherited stigma of touching what others refuse to touch. In a space where survival should unite, caste still divides. Although Mumbai officially reports that 41% of its population lives in slums, independent studies suggest the real figure is closer to 60%. Within this vast urban underclass, Dalits are often pushed to the edges, both socially and spatially. Their homes are more likely to be near dumping grounds, their lanes more prone to sewage overflow, their access to water and toilets more restricted. But even within this hierarchy, there is resilience. Take, for instance, the potter, traditionally a Dalit occupation, often dismissed for being tied to clay and soil, but from that very earth seen as polluting by caste norm. A skilled hand shapes beauty, A small terracotta cup, molded in Dharavi's back lanes, may one day sit on a polished windowsill in London or Paris. What society deems impure becomes delicate, desirable, and exported. In Dharavi, the injustice is layered. It's not just that people live in poverty, it's who is allowed to escape it, and who is expected to remain buried beneath it. And no matter how brightly the economy glows, the shadow of caste still stains the walls. Number 6. The darkness behind the prosperity. Dharavi is often treated like an outlier, a singular stain on Mumbai's glossy image, but in truth, it is a reflection, sharp, accurate, and deeply familiar. Every major Indian city has a version of it. In Kolkata, families curl up in the hollow shells of cattle sheds in Topsia. In Delhi, Sanjay Colony squats below humming electric towers, hidden in plain sight. In Bangalore, the slum of Ejipura was wiped off the map for a mall, only to reappear beneath an overpass rebuilt by the same people who were forced out. These aren't anomalies. They are patterns. Here, poverty is not random. It follows predictable lines drawn by where people are allowed to live, what jobs they are permitted to do, and what parts of the city they are meant to stay invisible in. The poor in these slums are not passive victims. They are active contributors. They sweep the floors of high-rises, stitch clothes for global export, and sort the trash that no one else touches. Their labor holds up the city, but they are never part of the picture. The city shows the world. Dharavi lies just over 11 kilometers from Mumbai's tallest towers, but the gap feels unbridgeable. One side of the city wakes up to espresso and filtered air. The other queues for water at dawn. Under tin roofs that bake at 45 degrees, one side scrolls real estate listings. The other prays that the rent doesn't rise another 200 rupees. The contrast is not unique to India. In Rio de Janeiro, the favelas cling to hillsides behind luxury condos. In Nairobi, Kibera swells along the railway line. Even in California, tent cities grow beneath the shadows of tech campuses worth billions. Everyone wants progress. The skyscrapers, the fast trains, the shining GDP, but few ever pause to ask, what does that progress cost? And who exactly is paying? The answer is not buried in statistics or hidden in footnotes. It's here, in places like Dharavi, where wealth is made possible by the very people who remain excluded from it. To truly know what a city values, don't look at its skyline. Look at who gets left behind. Number 7. Is it dangerous in Dharavi? To many outsiders, Dharavi might seem like a chaotic, risky maze, where poverty breeds danger and crime waits around every corner. But in reality, that image couldn't be further from the truth. Over the years, journalists and filmmakers like Kevin MacLeod Slumming It and Andrew Marr Megacities have shown the world a different side of Dharavi, one defined not by fear, but by community. In this seemingly overcrowded slum, a deep sense of connection and mutual support flows through the narrow alleys. Everyday activities like washing clothes, doing dishes, cooking, and caring for children all happen in shared space, on the streets, in front of homes, or in small communal courtyards. Privacy is almost non-existent, but in its place, social life thrives. People don't live next to each other. They live with each other. Main lanes are lined with bakeries, tailoring shops, corner stores, and jewelry vendors. These aren't just places of business. They're gathering points where neighbors meet, conversations flow, and relationships deepen. Most residents know their neighbors by name. They know whose children go to which school, who works the night shift, and who needs help on tough days. This constant human presence, this web of familiarity, is what keeps Dharavi surprisingly safe. Crime rates in Dharavi are notably low, not because of strict policing, but because of the watchful eyes of an entire community. When everyone knows everyone, it becomes difficult for wrongdoing to go unnoticed. Social pressure, informal accountability, and close-knit networks act as invisible safeguards. But let's not romanticize it. The social safety net in Dharavi doesn't eliminate the real dangers of poverty. Many residents live without access to clean running water. Health risks are ever present. A single contaminated bucket or untreated wound can lead to disaster. Still, what makes Dharavi remarkable is how this community, against all odds, finds ways to hold itself together. In a world where urban centers often fracture under pressure, Dharavi quietly proves that true safety isn't just about locks and walls. It's about people watching out for one another, even when everything else is missing. Number 8. Lessons from Dharavi. If there is one place that forces us to rethink what it means to survive and to create, it's Dharavi. This is not simply a slum. It is a living archive of human improvisation. In this dense patch of Mumbai, recycling machines roar beside infants being rocked to sleep. A leather tannery operates just one wall away from a tea vendor. A rap lyric about water shortages is spray-painted across a crumbling public toilet wall. There is no room here for excess, but somehow, there is always enough room for laughter, music, hustle, and care. Dharavi's people are not held up by public policies or social safety nets. Instead, they hold each other up through borrowed medicine, split Wi-Fi bills, shared buckets, and voices raised in protest songs. The lesson isn't just about poverty or resilience, it's about adaptability. In a world facing climate uncertainty and growing inequality, what Dharavi demonstrates, however unintentionally, is a blueprint for collective survival. It's not perfect, it's not painless, but it's undeniably functional. While city planners chase blueprints made of steel and glass, Dharavi reminds us that a city begins with connection. You don't need architectural marvels to form a neighborhood. You need people who know how to pass a fuse wire through the cracks, who will knock on your door when the power goes out, who will fix your sewing machine without asking for payment. And most of all, Dharavi reminds us that not all cities are built by governments or corporations. Some are built by hands that were never invited to the table, but that keep the engine running regardless. This community does not ask for pity, it asks for recognition. Because underneath every rusted roof, every plastic drum, every hand-me-down fan, lies a truth no textbook will teach you. A city lives not by how tall it builds, but by how well it breathes through its smallest alley. Dharavi has no gates, no welcome sign, no map, but if you ever find yourself inside, lost in the maze of tin and breath, just keep walking. What survives here isn't just people, it's proof that even when a city forgets you, you can still remember how to live. We've just taken a journey through the contradictions of Dharavi, a place so cramped it can suffocate, but so deeply connected it breathes with community. A place materially poor, but rich in creativity and shared resilience. Amidst all the forgotten layers of society, Dharavi leaves us with a question. Can we truly call a city developed if millions still live without clean water, without a voice, and without the right to choose their future? What do you think about the kind of progress we're seeing today? Is it truly inclusive, or does it only serve a privileged few? If you have thoughts, whether you agree or disagree, drop them in the comments. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to NVL Travel Documentary for more journeys that reveal the world's hidden truths from the ground up.